I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Thank you, Aparna. Respected Mr. B.S. Patel, Chairman, Computer Science Department. Respected Engineer Sandeep Gupta ji, Chairman, Faridabad Local Center. Shri K.R. Gupta ji, Secretary, Faridabad Local Center. Engineer Pankaj, and the esteemed panelists, Shri Samir Dutt ji, Surbi Devan, Shri Pradyuman Lavanya ji, and all the members who are attending the program here today. A very good evening to all of you. I first of all would like to thank IEI for giving me this opportunity to present my thoughts on this very important subject, that's cybersecurity for sustainable development. This topic has been in news for several years now, but it's all the more important now when our kids are getting into the cyberspace at the age of 4 or 5. So I have 2 little kids, and I experience this day in and day out. So my thoughts will come out from a mother's perspective as well, and for sure from the engineer's perspective. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very good friend, and her name is Sugandha. She's a marketing specialist. She visits her prospective clients and clients in conferences, exhibitions, and sometimes in cafeterias as well. One fine afternoon, she was meeting with one of her prospective customer, and a new guy came up and asked her for some help. His name was Mark, and he was at that particular time running some startup, and he was in dire need of getting some business leads. So Sugandha was in a hurry. She was in a meeting, and in a hurry, she presented her business card to Mark and asked her to contact her later on. Mark then used her visiting card, her name, her email address, and her phone number to know all about Sugandha over net. What her age is, what her preferences are, what her shopping preferences are, what her political views are, who her friends are, where she is going for vacations. He used all this information and kept it with himself. He shared this information with his business associates, his colleagues, and Sugandha had no clue. You must all be thinking, what kind of person is this Mark is? Ladies and gentlemen, the last name of Mark is Zuckerberg, and we all are Sugandha in this case. Day in and day out, we have been sharing our personal information over internet on different applications for services and for basic necessities these days. Even for shopping, we are providing all our information online. My name is Charu Smita Malhotra. As Engineer Pankaj has already mentioned, I am a founder, CEO of Technology and Personality Development Center, and we are into corporate trainings and technology solution providers. I've spent good amount of time with IBM, around 13 to 14 years, and I've got exposure to different organizations across the globe and their adoption to technology at that particular point in time. So I left IBM in 2018, and we started TabDC at that time. So I'll try and share my thoughts on blockchain technology. So the thing that I'm sharing today with you, it's going to be a revolution in itself. I'll be talking about self-sovereign identity and its answer to identity thefts. If I ask you all one question, what is your identity online? What will you say? I'm sure most of you will say, it's my username and password. To any app that I log into, to any website that I log into, I just share my username and password, isn't it? But we all agree that it is much more than username and password. It is all the things, all the identities that are linked to it, whether it is our education, what kind of graduation we have we done the post-graduation, our interest, our citizenship, our work, our purchases, our achievement, everything is linked. But there's a problem with this particular picture. The problem is these identities that you see, They are not linked to the user. These have been given to different apps and different services that we have been logging into. The user has no control over the information that he or she is sharing over internet to different apps and services. I don't even know 10 days before how many websites I logged into. I'm not even sure how many tools I have downloaded. Today itself, I've downloaded 5 tools. Ladies and gentlemen, our kids are getting into the cyberspace. They are logging into Teams, they are logging into Zoom, they are logging into Google Meet, and they are doing all sorts of stuff on cyberspace. And knowingly, unknowingly, we have been sharing all this information. The problem is, again, as I mentioned, the user has no control over the information that he or she has shared over internet. Our identities are at risk. The information has been strewn over to all different organizations. Right? There have been endless breaches on personal data. Billions have been spent on audits. I'm sure you will all agree with me. I'll share a couple of data with you, and I'm sure my fellow panelists will share more information about it as we go forward. There was a study done by Identity Fraud. It's called as Identity for Fraud Study. And they released an information that in 2018, there were 14.4 million identity thefts reported. And in 2017, there were 16.7 million identity thefts reported. So you can see how dangerous the situation is in. We are all in. So what is it that organizations, individuals, and governments looking at? What is one solution that they are probably looking at? They want, all of them, they want more control to be with the user. They want the user should have the sovereign identity. They should have all the information available with them. They should have the censorship resistance, right? That are difficult to achieve with the existing systems. So this is one thing that individuals, organizations, and governments are all looking forward to. And I'm sure all of us who are attending here today, they'll all agree. Can there be a system wherein I don't have to log in to each and every app and service and provide my credentials? Is it even possible? Why do I share my degree certificates with all the organizations? Why do I share all the information with everybody? Can I have control so that I can give access and revoke that access? Is it even possible? Let's see if we can find an answer today. So how does this all work? Again, I would like to reiterate, we are looking at a new form of identity that weaves together technologies and standards to deliver key identity attributes such as self-ownership and censorship resistance that are difficult to achieve with existing systems. I'm sure you all are okay with the problem statement at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, there is a solution. And the answer lies in blockchain technology. As the name suggests, blockchain is the chain of blocks. There is a notion that Satoshi Nakamoto is not a real person. It could be a group of people who are working behind this. So it's a group name given to a set of people. They adopted digital stamp technology, which was developed way back in 1999, and they adopted and they created a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, in 2009, which is based on blockchain technology. So most of us, we are confused that is blockchain equivalent to Bitcoin? Is blockchain only Bitcoin? So ladies and gentlemen, blockchain is the technology over which Bitcoin has been created. Right. As we go forward in the presentation here today, we'll have more information about what blockchain technology is and how can we use it to create a self-sovereign identity. So before I get into the use case of creating a self-sovereign identity, let us just go back and understand what a blockchain technology really is. So if you all can read this definition, a blockchain is a shared immutable ledger with a set of rules that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a business network, reducing risk and cutting cost for all involved. Now, asset can be anything. Assets can be tangible assets like a car, cash, house, or land, or it can be intangible like your IP or a patent, or it can be any kind of branding. So an asset can be anything. So there are three important words that you should remember. One is it's a shared immutable ledger and with a set of rules. These are three important words, and as we go forward, you will understand the meaning of what these three words are. So again, as a blockchain, in a blockchain, blockchain is a set of blocks, a chain of blocks. So what does a block basically contains? A block in a blockchain contains three things. One is the data. Data can be any kind of transaction that you do, and a hash of previous block. So what is a data in a blockchain? I'm taking an example of a Bitcoin blockchain here. So in this case, the data that will reside in that block is the transaction from person A to person B and the amount transferred in that particular transaction. So this is the data that a block in a blockchain contains. The second thing that we talked about is the hash. So what is a hash? Hash is nothing but a kind of a fingerprint. A hash is calculated as soon as we put information inside a block. So as soon as the data gets captured in the block, a hash gets calculated. Okay? So again, it's similar to a fingerprint. Right? If there is a change in the data in your block, the hash will get recalculated. So we need to understand there will be a recalculation of the hash here. And the third thing that a block contains, it's the hash of the previous block, right? So if you all see this in sequence, let's go ahead here. So there are three blocks. Each block contains some kind of information, some kind of data. The transactions are happening. So there is data in each of these blocks. There is a hash, and then there is a previous hash. So the previous hash is equivalent to the hash of the previous node. Are you getting it here? The hash, if you see for block 2, the previous hash is equivalent to the hash or the fingerprint of block 1, and the block for block 3, the previous hash is equivalent to the hash of block 2. In case of block 1, since there is no previous hash, since it's the first block that got created, it's called the Genesis block, and the previous hash remains 0 here. If there is some change in the data in any of these blocks, you see it here in this particular picture, what I have done is I have just changed the data in block 2. So as soon as there is a change in block 2, the hash for that particular block gets recalculated. Now, as soon as the hash got recalculated, the previous hash in block 3 doesn't match with the previous hash of block 2, and all the nodes in this blockchain, they'll come to know that the data has been tampered and that we should not provide consensus to this particular thing. So that this is the beauty of blockchain, that it becomes very, very difficult to rewrite data. It is very, very difficult to delete any data. It is very difficult to add unwanted entries in a data. So when we talked about immutable ledger, it means that once the entry has been created in the ledger, you cannot alter it. But yes, we are all human beings, and there are people who can actually change it. So again, there is a thing called proof of work in blockchain, which makes it difficult for the hackers to recalculate hash. Okay, I'm not getting into too much detail. Again, blockchain is a peer-to-peer network, as you can see in this particular picture, the blockchain can be private, public, or hybrid. So as per the access is given to all the nodes in a network, all the people or all the users in that particular blockchain network gets a copy of the ledger. So you can see the beauty of this, the blockchain. Instead of having a centralized place where there is the information about the blocks that have been created, each of the nodes or each of the users in that particular network gets a copy of the blockchain, right? So once they get all the copies, it means that it becomes very difficult again to change the information. When a new block gets created, all the users in that chain gets a copy of the new block, and they check whether the hash is all right, all the things are in place, and then they all provide a consensus, and then the new block gets added to all the copies of all the nodes that are provided, that are present in that particular blockchain. This is the technology of blockchain and how things work in blockchain in very simple terms. Again, one thing that we have learned here is, in fact, three key elements in a blockchain are: first, it is a distributed ledger technology. Ledger is nothing but a Bahi Khata that we all use in businesses, where we have a hard copy of Bahi Khata, or on a server we have a soft copy, but this is a distributed ledger technology. It has immutable records. That means the records cannot be muted. And third thing that it has is, it has the smart contracts. So just to sum it all the network participants have access to the distributed ledger and its immutable record of transactions. With this shared ledger, transactions are recorded only once and there is no duplication. No participant can change or tamper with the transaction after it's been recorded on the shared ledger. So I hope we are all, whosoever is present in this webinar today, we all know about blockchain and we can certify ourselves as basic knowledge holders of blockchain technology. Let's go forward. So again, there are several benefits of blockchain, as we have seen. It adds greater trust. Since everybody has its own copy of the ledger, there's a greater level of trust. I know what we are doing in the block. I don't have to depend on the third party. I do not want any banker to check. I do not want anybody else to do it for me. I, as a user or an organization or a government, we have trust in our data, the data that we have with us. Greater security, since they are immutable records, it becomes very difficult for hackers to break the chain, because the hacker will have to break the chains for all the nodes that are there in the blockchain network. And it is very efficient, it is very fast. We'll see in the use case that we'll be discussing today. Blockchain solutions, if we talk about blockchain solutions, there has not been any industry which is not planning to implement blockchain solution going forward. You talk about automobile, you talk about travel, you talk about healthcare, you talk about any government initiative, you name a thing, media and entertainment, all the industries across the globe, they are thinking about adopting blockchain solutions. Not just the cryptocurrency, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm saying not just cryptocurrency. We are adopting different blockchain solutions that runs on distributed ledger and other technological standards that we will probably see going forward. So let us come back to the same problem. We heard about Sugandha and we heard about Mart. So that was just the case that we mentioned. But yes, can there be a solution to this problem that we are currently in, or probably our next generation will probably in? Yes, the answer lies in the blockchain, as we discussed earlier. I would like to share with you one of the Microsoft verifiable identities prototype that Microsoft is currently working on. There are other organizations also who are aggressively working on digital identities and digital wallets related to digital identities and not just cryptocurrency. So let's see this example. It will be very interesting to see how things are taking place across the world. So I'm taking the example of Sugandha once again, since we know her and we are looking for a solution for Sugandha. right? So in this case, Sugandha is a student. She is studying in Contoso University. You'll find some English names, the US university names. They have been tampered, uh, but since this is a Microsoft prototype that I'm sharing with you, you will have to find some kind of resemblance with the Indian names. Okay, so Sugandha, she's studying in Contoso University. As soon as she joins, she receives a mail from the registrar. Your digital student ID is here. If you want, you can scan the QR code. What happens then? She scans the QR code. It goes to an authenticator. In this case, since we are working on the Microsoft Verifiable Identities prototype, we can assume that it's a Microsoft authenticator. It asks Sugandha for the username and password that has been provided to her by the university. She gives in her user ID and password, and the student ID has been given to Sugandha just based on the QR code, and it's up to her to accept it. Once she accepts it, it asks for some kind of a fingerprint. So that's to link your identity. It can be your eye scan, it can be your fingerprint, or it can be any other biometric that can be used here. So in this case, a fingerprint is required. She gives her fingerprint and she receives her student ID of Contoso University in her digital wallet. Okay. She can see that this is the recent activity. This is issued by Contoso University and it is available to her in her digital wallet. Now, there is a bookstore, Fabricam bookstore, and it provides discounts to students. So Sugandha wants to buy some books from Fabricam bookstore. Fabricam bookstore also runs on blockchain technology, and it says to Sugandha that verify the credentials, verify your credentials. Sugandha, and it says that if you want student discount, share your student ID. They would like to see your student ID. This is the permission that Fabricam bookstore is asking Sugandha for. Sugandha accepts it, and as soon as Sugandha, I'm just going back to the previous slide one more time. This is the student ID that Sugandha is sharing. She accepts it and she receives immediate discount. Now see, in a real world, for the student ID card, she would have to visit to a university in order to get that student ID card. In order to get the bookstore discount, she would probably have to upload her student ID card. That would have released some information about Sugandha, when was she enrolled, or in which particular year she is currently studying, and a lot more information. In this case, by just this particular token, she is now able to get the discount, and this is the receipt she is getting it. One important thing that you can see on this particular slide is, yeah. Can you see the screen? Somehow, yeah. So this, you can see this revoke access. This is the beauty of the blockchain. Now, once she has shared the access, she can now go back and revoke the access. I do not want to keep on sharing my student ID card with Fabricam textbooks. Please revoke the information that I have shared with them. As soon as she does it, the access comes back to her. Right? So the information has been shared, but the identity still remains with Sugandha in this particular case. Now, this is another example. Sugandha is a project management professional, and she applies to some college for a higher degree. Now, that particular college is now asking Sugandha for the student ID as well as her project management professional certificate that she has from Graphic Design Institute. Now, in this case, they are requesting for two different IDs. She accepts it. The information is then shared with the information is then shared with the Bellows College, and same is the case. Once it is done, she revokes the access, and Bellows College will no longer have any information regarding Sugandha in their own database. So this all information remains with the users in this particular prototype. This is called Microsoft's verifiable identities. I'm not promoting any organization. I'm not promoting any of the products, but I've seen that all the big organizations like IBM, Amazon, or Microsoft for that matter, they're working on different solutions, and most of the solutions are based on this particular picture that you can see, the most important thing here is the user agent. In this case, it's going to be the Microsoft prototype that is installed on Sugandha's phone. Then there is an identity hub, user resolver. All this information runs over decentralized system, which is the blockchain or the ledger. Right. This is a little complicated picture, so I'm not getting into the details of this particular slide. So to sum it all, each of us needs digital identity we own and control. Probably not today, probably 5 or 10 years down the line, but going forward, I personally believe that digital identity is something that we are going to own, and we'll have sovereign rights on our digital identity, on all the things that we have gained throughout our lives. This self-owned identity must seamlessly integrate into our lives and give us complete control over how our identity data is accessed and used. I'll just take another minute to say that if such a power game-changing, self-sovereign digital identities on decentralized platform are the future, then how we can control and share our identities will be truly blissful for all of us. And we will probably be living in a sustainable environment where we'll have control on our cyber activities, and cyber threats are going to be there since we are all humans, and humans are the hackers, and we talk about ethical hackers as well. But going forward, it's going to be a big game changer. And I was reading somewhere that by 2027, blockchain will be one of the technologies which we'll be looking forward to in future as well. So let's revolutionize ourselves, and let's look forward to how we can create our digital identities and digital wallets, not just for cryptocurrencies, but for our self-sovereign identities as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Over to you, Engineer Pankaj.
Thank you, Engineer Charu Savita Malhotra ma'am, for enlightening audience about cybersecurity, blockchain technology, digital wallet, digital identity.